So over midwinter break, my family and I went and visited Brittany's her family, so my in-laws, and they have cable, and so we don't have cable. So one of the things that really just is a total change when you go to someone's house who only has cable. They don't have Apple TV,
Right.
They don't have Netflix, they don't have video on demand, it's just cable, is you are only able to watch what is on.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not used to that. Like, I remember that from when I was a kid, but now I just go on Disney Plus or Netflix or Hulu and watch what I want to watch.
Totally, yeah.
It's really up to me. I'm choosing it. And there's a weakness there. There's a disadvantage and really a hard, bad thing about that, where when I have 2, 3, 4 hours to spare, I can just fill my time up with whatever I want. Whereas when you don't have that, when you're just watching cable, you're flipping channels and going, there's nothing I really like, I'm just gonna turn it off. And it's sort of like you don't have the choice. You're not choosing what to put on.
Right.
You just only have what they put on, and if you don't like it, you turn it off. But here's my question is, in this time of pandemic, when a lot of us are cooped up at home,
Right.
that because of YouTube, which this video is on YouTube, and because of Netflix and social media and the internet in general, I feel like a lot of us are just going to be choosing to do whatever we want.
Totally, yeah.
Whereas before, when there was no pandemic and we had to go to work and we could go, there was regular appointments and things to keep, you really had limited options. You only had a certain amount that you could choose to do, leisure time, but now we have a lot of leisure time. So I feel like that could present a problem.
Yeah.
If we want to follow Jesus, we can't just pack our time with whatever we want. We can't just Netflix all day, every day,
Right.
and we can't just binge every show, and we can't just do whatever. That's not healthy. Right? So here's my question. How can followers of Jesus maybe avoid that temptation?
Totally, yeah.
And instead be purposeful with how we use our time right now?
Yeah, I think that's so cool. Like as you were talking, I was just thinking about some of the things I was thinking about last night is like, prayer is not canceled. Church meetings may be canceled and church gatherings, but prayer, reaching people, calling people, all of these things are spiritual practices. Those aren't canceled. Like your walk with the Lord isn't like hitting the pause button,
Right.
And I think a lot of the times we want to almost like will ourselves like this, I'm going to be the strong Christian who's going to be like amazing. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to read my Bible, and then I'm going to go evangelize to my neighbors, and like I'm going to will myself to do this. And I think that's great. Like if you've got the willpower to like do that and be this super like Superman Christian person, then do that. But I think in a lot of it, the reality for a lot of us is that we struggle with being out of routine and
Right.
and how we can fill our time with things that can grow our relationship with the Lord. And I know like on a practical sense, it's like creating an environment where that's conducive. Like for me and my roommates, we were talking about it like, okay guys, we're not going to be slobs the next 8 weeks.
So you guys had to have a meeting.
We had to make a plan.
Yeah, okay.
For the next week of like, all right guys, a practical thing was like, we're going to work out every single day now.
Whoa.
Because we want
At home,
not at the gym. We're going to run little laps in our backyard, things
Nice.
like that. Just in
Like
the
a
sense,
dog chained up.
Yeah, seriously. And, all of the at-home workout things. So if you've got cool stuff, DM me or something, send me something because we're at a loss. But, just things like that of the sense of making a routine. Because you can't just say you're going to just do all these things, but you have no plan.
Right.
And I think sometimes we can hyper spiritualize things and be like, well, I'm just a Christian, it'll just ooze out of my essence that I would want to do this. But no, I really think it, and God, instructs us almost to like make this a plan and to be smart and to create, routine that isn't, erring in the legalistic element of things. You know, you're not legalistic for making a plan.
But in a way, maybe you need to be more legalistic out of obedience to Christ.
Yeah.
At this moment, because
Totally, yeah.
you don't have the structures of the same work schedule,
Right.
the church schedule, the small group schedule, my dentist appointment today got canceled, so I don't have
Totally,
that.
yeah.
You don't have these like rigid things that you have no choice in to kind of force you into this framework for your week.
Right, yeah.
So now you take all those away and it feels like summer vacation and you're in middle school all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But that's not healthy. So maybe you do need to be a little like not in the sense that, you know, God loves me more, but in the
Right.
sense that I love God more. I'm going to implement this routine and this schedule to help me
Yeah.
seek him in this time.
Yeah, and I even think of a verse that we've kind of been clinging to as well, is also in James in chapter 4 at the end. I think it's like 13, where it says, "For you to know what you ought to do and to not do it, for you it is sin." And I think when we read
Whoa.
that, you're like, nah, that's not sin. Like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things in our lives that are sin, you know, because it opens the doorways to laziness and all these different things, you know, that we don't want to call it that, because we're like, no. Me vegging out on the couch, you know, watching, you know, Netflix, that cannot be sin.
Right.
You know, it's not inherently sinful. But what James is saying there, and he prefaced this with like, your life is but a vapor. You can make all these plans, but you don't know what tomorrow brings. And that's how he ends that section, is for you to know in light of what's going on, rather, you know, instead of freaking out, but bring it into perspective of in light of what's going on, where you don't know what tomorrow brings. Everything's changing. There's a new news update every single day.
Yeah.
You know, in light of that, for you to know what you ought to do, which in this time can look like not being on your phone and parenting your kids through this time. It could look like giving up yourself, you know, your me time to minister to your roommate who's having an anxiety attack because they don't know how to deal with all the information coming in. You know, for you to not do those things, it is sin. Like, to rebel against what God could be putting you here in this moment to do. And that is crucial in this time of like, how do we structure our time in light of who God is and what he's called us to do? And that can look like a lot of different things. You know, for some people, it could look like setting this routine. Like, I know for me, if I'm not in routine, like, even though there's been nothing to really fill my planner with this week, I still fill that baby out, because I'm like, I need to have some sort of expression of, okay, God, here's how I'm going to steward my time. Because we're told to do that through scripture too.
Yeah.
All throughout the New Testament is like, steward your time wisely, use the resources and what you have unto the Lord, and use it in a wise way.
Okay, let me throw some legalism your way.
Okay, perfect.
This is godly legalism. Literally, this is the law of God, the 10 Commandments. I'm going to throw each one your way, and I want you in 1 or 2 sentences to interpret that commandment for a time of social distancing.
Okay.
How can I rigidly implement this law into my life for the next couple months, or however long we're in self-quarantine mode?
All right,
First, you shall have no other gods before me.
You should not have other things taking the place of the Lord in this time. That you should be dedicating all of your time to seeking him out instead of doing what you want.
So give him some time. Give him the time. Okay. You shall not make a carved image and bow down to idols. Okay, similar thing, right?
Right. You shouldn't have your TV on all the time.
Ooh.
Sitting in your living room where you could be talking to people around you.
Ooh, nice. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. This one's a tough one.
Yeah.
This requires some deep study and consideration.
Right. I may have just maybe some skewed theological ways of interpreting that.
So let me put it a different way. Don't slander God.
Right.
Don't give him a bad rap.
Yeah.
Don't misrepresent him.
Totally.
Don't invoke things in his name that are not true of him.
I think how we can do that in this time of social distancing could be just really encouraging people in the goodness of God in this time. And also not trying to, I want to be careful when I say this, but not trying to pinpoint every single physical thing that's happening and placing it within the book of Revelation and saying, the time is coming, Jesus is coming tomorrow. Although this may be true. I mean, we've been living in the end time since the ascension. Like, that's just the truth, you know? And I think really instead of invoking fear with the name of God and being like, God is all powerful and he's above, although that is true, really instilling that God is merciful and he is loving, and instilling those characteristics not in a fearful way or in like there is reverence and fear of the Lord, but not in a way that is,
represent him correctly.
Represent him correctly.
Reflect his heart correctly. That's good. Okay, remember the Sabbath day.
Ooh, really valuing true rest in the Lord and not considering rest as just being on your couch watching Netflix or, taking the time to seek out what Sabbath actually means for you.
Honor your father and mother.
Call your father and mother during this time. Call your grandparents, call your grandma, check in on them, FaceTime them. Trust me, grandmas love it when you FaceTime because they get to see their babies.
All my grandparents are dead.
Call your friends' grandparents. Call an elderly home. There's plenty of them. They need to hear from people.
You shall not murder.
Ooh, wash your hands and take care of your body.
That's
because
good.
If you don't actually steward your body well, you could be a murderer at the end of the coronavirus from exposing other people to the virus who could die.
Wow. You shall not commit adultery.
Okay, when you said that, the first thing that popped into my head was the whole idea of the coronials, how we're going to have a new baby boom at the end of the coronavirus because everyone's going to be housed together with hopefully their spouses.
And then in 40 years,
the
next generation will say, okay, coronials.
Right. No, I think taking adultery in the sense of obviously don't cheat on your wife during this time. I don't know how you could, or your spouse, but also just really giving the Lord that place in your heart and not cheating on the Lord with fear and anxiety, and really just letting him take that precedent in your heart.
That's good.
I don't know.
Okay, you shall not steal.
Don't go to the store and stock up on things you don't need.
Right.
Like, just take
toilet
what
paper.
You can for the day, and obviously be prepared and all that stuff. But yeah, don't. I'm kind of going a little bit more meta here, but don't also steal people's joy. If they feel like in this time, like I'm so pumped, like that's been me. Honestly, I've been thanking the Lord because I'm pumped to see how the church is going to respond.
There's a lot. I see a lot of that on social media.
Yeah.
Someone will post an opinion like, I'm so thankful God's really teaching me a lot in this time.
Right.
And then someone will comment and go, well, what about?
Right.
It's like, whoa, give me a break.
Right.
You're two different people in two different places,
Right.
learning two different lessons. And just because they said this doesn't mean they're not also.
It doesn't negate what is going on in your life. Yeah.
And so we can through just opinion exchange, just rob people of what God is doing in their life. And we just impose ourselves.
Right.
And go, if you're not thinking the way I'm thinking, I'm just going to
Or even your idea of, because God is so personal. He could be teaching you so much in this time. Like, I know for me, it can be one thing where I'm like, oh man, you're going to be breaking down the way that Americans view church. We're not going to do church. We're going to be the church. While other people are like, I'm depressed and lonely because I miss people, and you don't steal away with your own opinion what God is doing in that person's life.
Do not bear false witness against your neighbor, which I guess technically in ancient Israel meant don't perjure yourself, like don't lie under oath. It's a judicial thing, but let's say don't lie.
Right.
How about that?
If you have offered help to your neighbors, follow through on that promise.
Be someone who's faithful.
Be someone who's faithful to your word.
Oof. Do not covet your neighbor's house, nor covet your neighbor's wife, or his female servant, or male servant, or his ox or donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Okay, don't covet.
Right.
I think that's big right now.
It's big because, I mean, you see there's Facebook videos of people going to stores and crying because they can't find diapers for their kids, or they can't find the things that are necessary to them. So I could see this in twofold of like, don't covet the things that, you know, we need. I know everyone's scared, you know, and wants to hoard everything that they can for their family and for the sake of their health, you know, but there's also a grand scheme look that we need to have of people who also need these things. And so I would say if you have a lot right now, I would encourage you to donate to a food pantry, you know, what you can, while still providing for your family and being smart. And I also would say, don't withhold the gospel during this time. Don't covet your faith right now and hold
Share
it to your, share it with the people around you, because I feel like this world, especially from a spiritual perspective, has been dying. Like, people have been dying and going to hell since forever. And it's almost weird, and I know this might sound a little off, but it's like in this time where there's this pandemic happening and people are dying, you know, there's this need that arises. And I feel like as Christians, we can look at this and see like, this is a very physical manifestation of what's happening every day, even before coronavirus has been happening, that people are dying and people are not being fulfilled in what they need. Because the true need, the spiritual need, will never outweigh, it will always outweigh the physical need, because people need Jesus more than anything, because that's what gives you eternal life and salvation. So don't withhold that from people during this time.
That's good.